Okay, welcome. Thank you so much for coming again. Today is the last day of the course basic level in programming in C Sharp. In this week, we will talk about loops, we will talk about lists, and we will talk about the switch statement. Please, if you have any problem hearing me well or any problem seeing the presentation on screen, make sure to let me know. So last week we have seen conditions and we have talked about the scope of a variable and we have seen some operators. I won't be going over them again, but this week we will talk about uh, also some extra operators. Probably they are already covered, but just to make sure. We will see also loops, how to make repetitive code, and we will talk about lists, which is something um, not very common in between among other languages, but it is very useful to use. And eventually we'll talk about switch statement, and then we will have the live demo. So in today, after today, you will learn how to implement a repetitive behavior in your application. And you will know how to use list to store multiple data entries. The switch statement will be helpful to implement different scenarios in your application. There is no quiz time because you have chosen not to have a quiz, so we will skip the quiz. First, let's start with the operators. If you have a calculation you want to perform, or another type of operators is the operators that you will use to add or subtract. I forgot the word. And also other type of operators are the equality or the larger than, less than, those kind of logical operators also. Today we will talk about how to use the mathematical kind of operators. So in the left hand here you see the operator, and in the middle you see the example. On the right hand is what you will use normally in math. So the first one is plus followed by an equal sign is exactly as saying I want to add whatever number after the equal sign to the x. So here plus equal 2 means x equal x plus 2. And the rest are the same exactly. Last one is the modulo symbol, which will give you the reminder of division. So here, if you have a modulo after and followed by an equal symbol, this means that I want to divide the value of y by 2 and have the reminder of that division stored in y. So it's a little bit tricky. Only that one, but the rest is just very simple. There is the incremental and the decrement way of incrementing or decrementing a variable. This is used only to increment or decrement by 1. So if you have a variable like here we have x, you can just add x plus plus and a semicolon. This exactly is the same as x equal x plus 1, or exactly as the same if you say x plus equal 1. But this is just shorter and faster to write. There is a different type, which is plus plus x. This is also the same. There is a difference. We will talk about this in the next slide. Also, you can do the same with the minus. So double minuses will means I want to decrement the value of x by 1. You can use it either afterwards or before the x. Also, there is a difference. So let's talk about that difference. So if you have the the plus plus before the variable, what does it mean? It means first to increment the value of x by 1 and then use the new value of that x. So if you have this operation in one line, so we have y equal plus plus x multiplied by 3, this means first increment the value of x by 1 and then do the multiplication. So the answer of y here would be 24. But if you add the plus plus after the x, this means first use the current value of x, do the multiplication, add the result to y, and then increment x by 1. So here the result will be different. It will be a 21. I would advise you not to use something like this. So you have an operation which will add 1 and another operation which will multiply by a number. Don't add them in one line, just do them separately so you don't have bugs. And also it's more readable. Just an example, you can either declare a variable and have the plus plus after it or before it as a separate statement, as I just said, or you can have it in one block of code like here. Is there any question about what we have talked so far or last week? Before we go into the real stuff, I will turn on the raise hand button so you can use it. Okay, cool. More questions? Okay, great. Let's move to the for statement. A for statement is something that you want to use when you want to have a repetitive behavior in your code. So far we have learned to see a code being executed from top to bottom with nothing to be repeated. However, if you would like to repeat some part of your code, you don't have to copy and paste it multiple times, but you can use a for statement or loops in general because there are multiple types of loops. We will talk about most of them today. A possible repetition statement is a for statement. The statement executes a given number of times, so you can specify how many times you want your for loop to be executed and what will happen after each time it is being run. Here's the syntax. It's just very simple. You write for, F-O-R, and 2 parentheses. In those 2 parentheses, you would have the first part is the initialization part where you'll declare your variable. This variable is used to have to how do I say it? So it is used to count how many times you have looped, so to speak. I will explain it later in the next slide. And then you have a semicolon here. And then the second part is the condition that it is being evaluated. Because the for loop, it will keep on looping until that condition evaluates to be false. When that evaluates to be false, then this for loop which will be break out, and then it will continue afterwards. And the third part, after you have a semicolon, of course, the third part is the action you want to do after each iteration. And of course, in 2 parentheses, you would have your statement that you want to repeat. An example, which is a little bit easier for me to explain. So here we have declared a variable called sum from type integer. And we have a for loop. And first we have initialized a variable from type integer, and we have called it counter. So this counter will count how many times we have looped so far. counter here, we have the condition. We are saying keep looping as long as counter is less or equal to 10. And then the last part is every time you loop, add 1 to counter. Plus plus is to add 1. So each time it will loop, it will do the stuff right here inside the two curly braces, and then increment 1 to the counter, and then go check the condition. If it's still true, then it will go again, do those things again. If it is false, then it will go out of that loop. So here in this example, we have counter started from the value 0. We are saying I want the counter to be um, less or equal to 10. So this loop will continue 10 times or 11 times because also 0 is one time. And we are incrementing by 1. The things we are doing is we are adding the value of that counter to the variable sum that we have declared above. So we are saying here 0 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3, etc. until you reach 10, which is this part. And then, of course, the end value of sum would be 55. But also you can use this section here at the end of the for loop, not just to increment by 1, but you can also increment by whatever number you like. So here we have used plus equal 3, so we are jumping 3 numbers at a time. And we are also starting from the number 9, so you don't have to start with the number 0. And the condition here is a little bit larger, so we are using if counter is less or equal to 104. Please add 3 by 3, add 3 and skip 3. So we are adding 9 and then we're adding 12, etc. Extra information. Let's see. Counter controlled repetition. Counter can be defined before the for statement or in the initialization part. So you can have that counter either initialized right here in between two parentheses, and after you finish that for loop, it will be deleted from the memory because, of course, the scope of that variable starts from the for loop and ends when it reached the closed curly braces. Or you can have that counter initialized before the for loop, and here you have only a semicolon, nothing before it. Or you can have integer counter before, and then here you have counter equals 0 semicolon without the word integer between two parentheses. This is also fine. So all of those possibilities are also fine. So also here, look, we have been trying to use the counter after we are after we have done with the for loop, but this one will give you an error because, like I said, counter is initialized right here and it ends right here. This is for loops. Is there any question? Okay, we have Kevin.
Yes. The part right after the initialization, now that determines the condition, right? So the condition, after the condition is looked at, it execute the statements in the parentheses executed next, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Before, after the I'm just trying to see if I understand this correctly. So the statement in the parentheses is executed, and then the counter is incremented, right?
Exactly.
Okay,
Yep, exactly. Okay,
got it.
awesome. Is there any other questions so far? Okay, let's move on. Um, So, what other languages and of course C Sharp is using, mostly arrays. An array is a kind of variable. It's not a primitive type of variables. It is a variable, let's say, or a list of variables that can have multiple values inside it. This thing is used in more than the majority, let's say, in the majority, not more than the majority, in the majority of languages. But I won't be talking about it in here. I will introduce something a little bit more useful in my own opinion. We also will talk about the pros and cons. But for general, just to go quick over it, this is how you declare an array. An array declared with the type of the array, two brackets, the name of the array, the new keyword, the same type you have used at the beginning, two brackets, and then here you have the number, which is how long is that array. So how many elements it can have inside. Um, the limitation of the array is that if you reach the end of that array, you can't add one more, then you would have an error. And if you are looping over it, you should be careful. If you go outside the boundaries of the array from either side, you're also going to get an error. So what is the alternative? That is a list. Lists are useful when you are not sure what is the amount of elements you will need in your application. So it is a flexible type. It's also the same, so you can have more than um, one variable in it, and it can also be declared with multiple types of variable. Not multiple type in a list, but each list has its own type. So the first here we have, let's see it as an abstract before we go into semantics. So here we have a list and we added a value. The value num, the value 1 is added to the first element. When you say add, it will be added to the current index because it has nothing inside, so it will be added to the first element. After we have added it to the first element, we can add something new. So we also called add a new element. It will also add another element inside the same list. So here we have the value 1 and the value 2 inside one variable, which is called my list. We can add an element in a certain position. So you can insert. So insert is a keyword we will use also. You can insert it between two indices. Also, let's pay attention that the first one starts with the index 0. It is the first element, of course, but it starts with the index 0. So the first index is 0, second one is 1, and the third one is 2. And we have inserted an element in between the index 0 and index 1. So we have inserted the value 3 here in between those two. This cannot be done in arrays. So this is one advantage. You can also remove a variable if you don't want it anymore. Remove keyword will remove the first occurrence of that element. So if we remove the value 3, it will go from the left to right. First value 1 is not equal to 3. Second one is value 3 is equal to 3. Then it will remove it and it will stop. So if you have here value 3 and here another value also 3, only the first one is removed. This is also one of the advantages. This is something that you can't do in arrays. So after we have removed, we can remove a variable at a specific index. So not just by a value. Here we have removed it by a value. So we say remove value 3 and it will go over the list and see where is that value 3 and remove it. But you can also remove at a specific index. So you can say I want to remove the value in the index 1, whatever that value is. So here is the first one was index 0 and this one is the index 1. We removed the index 1 and we are left with a value 1. And this is the last step we did. And also there is a function called clear. This is also something you can't use in an array. A clear will remove every element in the list and make it empty again. It doesn't matter how many elements you have, it will be empty. So let's talk about the syntax. Syntax is very simple. If you are using Visual Studio, you can just write the keyword list and press the tab button, and it will just print everything out for you. But the general syntax is a list with capital L, and then two angular brackets. In between those, you would have the type. The type is either an integer or a string or a double or whatever is the values that you want to store. And this type is one type for all the variables. So you can't have a value as an integer and then you can't add another value as a string. They all have to be the same type. And then after those two angular brackets, you would have the identifier, which is the name. You can either end it with a semicolon and call it a day. That is the declaration. But you still have to initialize that list by saying that name of that list equal new list and the same type you have added right here and two empty parentheses. Or you can do both in one line. It's also fine. So here an example, we have a list and it is of the type integer. So every element inside it should be an integer. And we have given it a name, my list. This is the declaration. Now the initialization, we have initialized my list equal new list integer because it is of the type integer and two parentheses. Of course, also when you write the keyword new and you hit the tab button on your keyboard, Visual Studio will fill out the rest for you. So this is an exercise for you to try. Write an application that uses a list of integers. The GUI or the graphical user interface has one button and a list box. We have seen how to use list box and buttons before. Every time you click on the button, it should add the integer. So the next integer is added to the list. So you start with 0 and then 1 and then 2, etc., etc. And then add all of those from the list in the list box and update it. Every time you click, update the list box, excuse me. Here is the hint of that code, but you can also use your own imagination to write your own code. The things that you will need is to use the .add function. We will see that in a few seconds. You can retrieve an element by saying element at index. So you have the list name, or first the list type, of course, because you will return that element. And after that, you would have the list name. And then in between two brackets, you would have the index of that element you want to retrieve. Also, there is a count function if you want to sum up every element in that list. We skip this slide. So those are the top used functions in lists. So the first one is .add. So here we have the identifier, which is just the name. I have my list. So my list dot add, capital A, two parentheses, and then the element that you want to add to that list. This will insert a new element in the list. Second one is insert. It takes two things inside those two parentheses. The first one is the index that you want to insert that new value at. So here you give it an integer. So it's either a 0, 1, 2, 3, whatever value, and a comma, and then the element that you want to insert. Remove by value, so you can either call dot remove with a capital R, you can remove by value. Here you would give it the value and then the list will look up for that value. It will remove the first one and it will stop. Or you can say, I want to remove with a specific index. You say remove at, capital A, and then you give it the index that you want to remove the value from it. And of course, we have talked about clear. Clear to empty parentheses will clear all the list. Element at index, it will retrieve that element from that specific index. Find the index of the element, so it's the other way around. If you have the value and you want to know what is the index of that value, you would use the dot index of, and then you give it the element in between two parentheses. Well, those are the top used. Contains is less used. This will give you either true or false. You give it an element and it will check if the list has that element or not. It will give you true or false. And of course, don't forget to assign this statement to a boolean to use it afterwards. The last one is .count. It will count every element in your list. You don't have to memorize all of those. You can find them online. And also when you hit the dot, when you write the name of your list and click the dot key on your keyboard, it will give you a list of all the things that you can do with the list. And if every balloon, it has its description. So you don't have to memorize those, but it's good to know that those things exist so you don't reinvent the wheel. This is also going to skip. So lists are a way, because there are many ways, to avoid certain limitation of an array. It is dynamic in size. A new element are automatically placed at the end, and removing is implemented already for you. But on the other hand, it's less efficient if you very much worry about how fast is your application running. And of course, in these days, it doesn't really matter because we now have very fast PCs. But still, if you maybe work at Google, they will require a very efficient program. And it use a little bit more memory than array. Okay. You can use also .sort, .reverse, or .toArray. .toArray will convert the list to an array. .reverse, it will reverse the order of the elements inside. And .sort, it will, of course, sort whatever values you have in. Is there any question so far? If you have a question, you can click the raise hand button on your side, or otherwise I will just keep on talking. Okay, Ronald, you can.
Hi, Mohammed.
Yes.
With the for loop,
Hi.
the second element, you had the account of an array or of a list. I was always wondering how many times is that expression validated? With an array, because it's fixed length, I can imagine that it's only compiled once. But with a list, you say
This
the
one?
list can be changed within the for loop. And if the
Mm-hmm.
the count or the length is just executed once before the loop starts, then yeah,
Mm-hmm.
what happens? Because I always,
Yeah.
when I program, I
Um,
always have an extra variable in before of the loop. So I have n
yeah,
length is array dot
you already
length,
have.
because I always believe that
Yeah.
that is faster, but I'm not sure.
Yes. Yes, you already have the answer. So for that, you would declare the length of that list before it if you are going through the list one by one. But I believe there is a function dot length or dot count. So this function, this count, it will return the current amount of the list, the current amount of elements in the
Yeah,
list.
but will it execute every time the loop starts? So like
Um,
if loop runs 100 times, will that function be
mhm.
called 100 times?
Yes, it will be called 100 times.
Then it would be,
So it is
then it would
better
be
if you
better
know
if you work for
before.
Google to change it by a variable in the beginning before the loop. Is that right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You get it right.
Thank you.
Interesting question. Thank you. Next question is from Roxana or Roxana. Sorry if I pronounce it wrong.
Yes. Um,
Yep.
since I'm just jumping in here, like I think it's your third or fourth class, um, I'm an old school
Third.
Fortran programmer, and I want to learn the C++. I've always wanted to do that, but is there anywhere I can go on YouTube maybe to get caught up?
We will run this course again. So today is the last day of the basics.
Oh, okay.
Next week, I already have set up the introduction for the course. So if you attend next week, we will register you, and then the week after that, we will start from the basics again.
Perfect.
And for the people who are already registered in this course and who are willing to go to the intermediate, also please attend the intro week to next week, so we can also register you for the intermediate level. Awesome question. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm trying to find out when is your next basic start?
Um, so next week, Saturday is the introduction week,
Okay,
and the week after it, it will be the first week of the basic.
perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I'm gonna pop out then.
My pleasure.
Okay, thanks so much again.
You're welcome.
Where am I gonna?
Okay, let's go on. Last thing we'll talk about today before we go to the demo. The switch statement. That's hard to say. Switch statement. We might need to test a value or an expression for different values, right? We have seen how to use if statements and nested if statements. But however, if you are testing for an exact value each time, you can use something very much more legible to the developer, which is a switch statement. It is used for evaluating an expression with multiple choices. Uh, excuse me. Constant integral expression or constant string expressions. So you can't have is it larger than or less than. It has to be just a constant, and you compare two with each other. And it is just like I said, is more readable. So let's look at the code. Maybe the slides is not very much looking like it's more readable, but you will see it in the demo. It is more readable than if statements. Here we have the switch statement. First, you just write switch, press double tab, it will print out the rest for you. But for general, if you write the switch and then two parentheses, inside here you would have your expression or your variable that you want to evaluate into curly braces. You would have the first case. Case is a keyword. So case, and then you have the value of that case, or the value that you want to compare with your expression. And then two colons, not a semicolon, but just normal colons. Um, in between the case and the break, because we have a break at the end, there are the statements that you want to execute when that value is exactly equal to the expression. Of course, when this value is not equal, the compiler will go to the next case and check it if the value 2 is exactly equal to the expression. If it's yes, then it goes right here and break. Break means it will get out of the switch, so nothing else will be evaluated. And if it's not, it would go on and on until if all of those cases failed, it will go to the default, which is just an optional thing that you can have, and I advise you to have it. This means that if all of those are not exactly equal to the expression, do the things is do the things that are here, and then break out. An example is we have here two variables, and we are evaluating the variable type truck. Well, this should be type truck, not type product. Probably my mistake. But just let's imagine those two are the same name. And we have that variable with the value man or man. So the first case, is it dof? If it's dof, then do those and then break out. So breaking mean it will go out. Well, because now it's not dof, then it will go check if it's Mercedes. It is not Mercedes, so it will go to check the third case, which is mon or man. It is exactly true. It will do those. It will break, so it will go outside to here. The default is not checked. If all of those fails, then those things will be executed, and then it will break. Here is the similarities or the differences between if statement and switch. So on the left side, you see it's a little bit more readable. So here you have the variable you are evaluating, and all the cases are just above each other. While here on the right side, you have the if statement with the variable that you are evaluating, which is kind. And all of those types or values are a little bit mixed. So it's a little bit harder to read. But the advantages of if statement is that you can have not only equal equal, but you can also have larger than, less than, or other things. Is there any question? Okay, that is great. Let's go for the demo. The demo. What should we do today as an application? Let me share my screen first. I was thinking about making an application which will record your orders and maybe process them. So last week we may have made application with orders, and maybe today we will do something else also with that. If you see yourself on screen, show me your hearts so I know you are seeing it. I am seeing it. Is everyone seeing it? Okay, that's awesome. So I will open Visual Studio, create a new project. I will choose Windows Form. You're already familiar with these steps. I will say here, week 3, forms, create, and let's wait. Okay, finally. No, I'm not enjoying. Okay. Let's add a list box. A list box. Where is the list box? This box. I'm getting blind. So this list box, let me add another one. Let's add some buttons. A button right here. Maybe another button right here. Maybe a checklist like we did last time. Checkbox, not a checklist. I will add only two. So what I was planning on doing is oh let me add another one, another list box. Oops, not this one. This box. Okay, so what I was planning on doing is to have a customer where it goes, let's say, in a restaurant. And of course, my design is a little bit boring, but you can design and take the time you like in your own. So the customer goes to the list right here, check whatever they like to order, and then press the button Make an Order. This Make an Order, it will add that order number to this list, or those things will be added to this list. And then when we click process, we will move all those things, give it an order number, put it here in this list, which is the processing or under processing orders. Then this list is the finished product. So let's also add another button right here to jump between those two. This one is to add a VIB order, so we can insert that order at the top of the list. And here we will make a simple order. Okay, let's give them some names. Let's say here, I don't know, a drink. And here, a sandwich. Sandwich. Only if this is the correct way to spell it. This button should make an order, and this button should make a VIP order. We also need to process the orders, so move them from here to here. So let's name it process. Process with double C's, was it? Or one C's? I don't care. And here we will have the list of orders that are finished. It's simple. Do we need something else? Let me check. So we check those. We click. Oh, we need something to submit or add. Let me add another button. I just copy this one right here. You can hold the Control key and click and drag. It will make a copy. Let me add item. Okay. Let me just give them a name. Button add item. Button order. Button VIP order. And this one is button process with the mistaken spelling. And this list box is the list box of orders or items. List box of items. This list box, it has the orders. And this list box should have the finished orders. So let's call it done. Okay. So this is my design for today. let's go into coding. So let's think about it. First, if we add an item to the list here, or check something right here, I want a drink or a sandwich, I click on add an item, it should add that item here in the list. This is not something new, you already have seen it before. But I want to make an order and empty that list, and then another customer will come and make another order, and another one will come and make another order. So I want to have a mean to store all of those data. Of course, you can save all of those items in the backend somewhere, but right now I will store only the order number. So each order, I will give it a number. When you make an order, I will move it from here to the back, store it in the memory with an order number, and add it right here in this list, which is the list of orders that are being handled at the moment. And then when I press process, it should finish all of those things and put them here on this list. Let's go for add item. Double click, it will open up the method, the function, where you can enter the code of clicking. I'm sure it's not new for you. So here I will add, say, if I want to check first which item is checked or not, so I can add it. I will say, let me get the name of this thing. It's called checkbox 1. I didn't change the name. I will say checkbox drink, and this one is, because I'm lazy, sandwich. Okay, here I can say if checkbox drink dot checked, then I want to store that item in the list. For now, I will just add it to the list box in the front end. So I will say list box items dot add, dot items dot add, and here I will say drink, a drink. Okay. And I need another one for not the drink, but the sandwiches. So I will say if checkbox sandwich dot checked, then add a sandwich. Oops. It's very simple. Let me just try it very fast and go on with the important things. Okay, it's just 2 lines. Come on. Okay, add item does nothing. Check drink, add drink. Check sandwich, add sandwiches, because both are checked. Remove the drink, now I only add sandwiches. That's cool. Now I want to make an order. If I want to make an order, I want to empty this list, because the next customer will order new things, of course. And I want to give it a order number and store it somewhere. So let's go to the button of order. Now, because I want to store the list and access that list here and here and here, I want to store it not here in the button, because it will be removed after this closed braces. So I have to make the scope of the list a little bit bigger. What is the bigger scope of this is this one. So this one goes from here up to here. So I will declare my list right here at the top. I will say list, capital L. See, I will just press the tab button. Oops, it didn't work. And then I will add an integer, give it a name. I would say order numbers and the semicolon. Um, I prefer to have the list initialized right here, but you can also say here equal new uh, list and two parentheses. It's also fine. I prefer to add this right here. Let's take this one for now. So I have declared a list of order numbers of the type integer in a bigger scope. Now I can use it everywhere. Here I want to first empty this list. Maybe you will send those items to the chef or do whatever you like with them. But at the end, you have to empty that list box. So I would say list box items dot items dot clear. So I don't have anything else. And I want to give it a number. I also need to store the order numbers. You can either check what is the last order number here and increment that by one, or you can just simply declare an integer last order number equals 0, which is just a little bit easier to know, to read, and to access. And here I will say, what did I name it? List order number plus plus. So plus plus means incremented by 1. So I incremented the last order number by 1, and I will send it to this list. I will here say order numbers dot add two parentheses, and then the item here you can see in the balloon, it only takes integers. So you can here enter this guy and a semicolon. Right now we can't see what is going on. Did I tell you how to use the debugger? Where are you? I don't think I have. Did I? So let's see it today. How to use the debugger of Visual Studio. Let's add a breakpoint right here. You can click on this gray area. It will add a breakpoint. So the compiler will stop when this breakpoint is reached, and it will give you more information about what is going on right now. So I will either start from here or press F5 or F10. I will click add something, okay? I will click make an order, and now it stopped the program or paused the program. And here you have this line in yellow, means this line is not yet executed. But if you hover over the previous line, you can see the current value is 1. And if you hover over the order numbers, you can see here that the counter is 0, so there is nothing inside yet. If I press F10, then it executes that line and goes to the next line. And if you hover over the order numbers right now, you can see that the count is equal to 1. You can, of course, open that list and see all the elements here. You can debug and see where is the bug is going or what mistakes you have made. This is something very useful. We don't need it right now, but you have seen that we added number 1 in the list. But right now, because we have added it to this list, we need also to show it in the list of orders. So let's also say list of orders dot items dot add, and we need to add all of the things in this list in that list box. But then how do we do that? We need to use loop to go over the items one by one and then add them one by one using this line. So let's use a for loop. For double tap, and you have all the things written for you. Integer I equals 0, so we start from the index 0. I don't need to change it. As long as I is less than the length, which is the length of the order numbers, I will just add this one, order numbers dot count, and this will give you the count of that order number. And here you increment one by one, so you iterate over all the items. So what do you do with this? You need to add that item to the list box on the screen. And here you can say, I want to access the order numbers in the index of I, because I is changing 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. and a semicolon at the end. So here it will go I is 0, and then it will go into the order numbers and see what is the value of the index 0. It will get that value and add it to the list box. But before we do that, we need to clear the previous list box, or otherwise we will just abandon the new values over and over again. So we say listbox dot items dot clear, like this. Not the items, the orders, sorry. Orders dot clear. Okay, let's see it. We are already over in this session, but I will continue. If you like to stay, you can stay. If you like to leave, you can see the video afterwards, but I will continue. Okay, so let's see what is going on with our application. Let me add a couple of drinks, one sandwich, and make an order. So this list box is now removed or emptied, and now we have the order number 1. Let me create another order. I want to add a drink and a sandwich. Make an order. I have order number 1 and number 2. Okay, that's cool. Let's do the process. Or let me do the make VIB. I specifically chose this button so we can insert an order at the top of the list. So we can use insert. Of course, we want to use the same things right here, but instead of using the for loop, I only need to use this section. Of course, you can use methods if you know how to use methods instead of copy and paste, but I will copy and paste because we're still in the basic level. So after we have added that items to the list box, do all the things the same. The only difference is that we need not to clear the items in the orders, and we need to insert that order number at the top of the list. So we say list box orders dot items dot insert, and in two parentheses here you see that the first one is the index and then the comma, and then you give it the value that you want to insert. So I want to insert in the value in the index 0 at the top, comma, and the object is this guy, the current order number, and the semicolon. Let's see it. Drink, add item, make an order, number 1. Sandwich, add an item, make an order, number 2. Now let's make a VIB order. Make a VIB order. Now we have number 3 at the top of the list, and then we have 1 and 2, which is very cool. Let me add another item, make a VIB. Now the VIB is at the top, and then the rest is beneath it. I chose to have the process here so I can demonstrate the switch statement. I want to maybe give a gift card for all the orders which has the number 3 or something like that, okay? So maybe, or starts with the number 3. So 333, 333, etc. Let me click on the button. I clicked here. now I will use the items in the order list, which was declared right here, order numbers. First, I will move everything from this list to this list, make it that we have delivered all the orders at once. So we here are going to say, um, also we need a for loop, so I will just copy this one for now. So we go over all the orders in our list, and we add them to the last list box, which is the done. And we, of course, want to clear the both of those list boxes. So those should be clear before we add. So here I will say list box, oh freak, select box dot items dot clear, and a list box orders dot items dot clear. Now this doesn't demonstrate a real life behavior of an application, because you don't need to clear those things if it's not done, or in this process you need to do something with the actual order, not just remove it from the list. But for now, let's imagine that has been done. Let's see what's going on before we make the switch statement. Sandwich, make an item, make an order, okay? And then I press process. All of those are processed and moved to this list. Now I want to give gift card or something for all the orders which has number 3 or anything. So I can use either an if statement, of course it works, but to use this switch I just type SW and press the tab double times or twice, and I have those things written down for me. Here I can check for the order. I will move this one inside, so we have access to the order number I. Here I will check if that order number is, let's say, case 1 is equal to 3. Then I also don't forget the break. Then here we will say message box MB double taps, and it say here you have won a I don't know, free drink. Okay. If it's number 3, we'll give it free drink. If case is equal to let me say 4, because we can demonstrate it faster than 33. And of course the break, and here we will say MB double tap. I will say here good luck next time. Okay, you can add as many switches as you like, and of course the default is let me move this one to the default because it makes more sense. And here you say you have won a free ticket to hell. And of course, don't forget the break. So what we have done here is that we are evaluating the orders one by one. We are checking if that order is equal to 3, we give this message to the customer. If it's equal to 4, we give this. If it's not equal to either 3 or 4, we give the default, which is this message. Now this will be executed so many times. I will get so many message boxes. I will add an item, make an order number 1, add an item, order number 3, and add an item, make a VIB order number 3. I will hit process. So number 1 is added at the top, you can see it. and I have the message says good luck next time. Number 2 is added, and now it says good luck next time because also it doesn't satisfy any condition. Number 3 is added, which is the lucky number, and here it says here you have one free drink. And yeah, that's how you use a list and a switch statement and a for loop. I hope this was very helpful for you. If you have any question, you can either ask them right now or leave them in the comment section in the YouTube channel. Thank you so much for attending.